We will also hear from the key international expert from the Ukraine-Swiss program, Mr. Marco Denardi, Safoso again, following which we will switch already to the presentation of results or implementation of the pilot project in 2021. And please welcome Mykola Bilos, Deputy Director of the Food Safety Department and Control of Organic Production, and Oksana Novahat, Head of the Food Safety Unit of the SSFSCP. And then we are going to have a short break, which will be continued with subsequent discussion. Please welcome Anatoly Vovnyuk. I'd like to congratulate you, Anatoly, with this kickoff of the pilot project. It was done with your signature on the document, and we are ready to report the results for each of the pilot regions in 2021. So, Anatoly, please, the floor is yours. Good morning, dear colleagues. Very glad to see all of you. We have 17th of February and everything is calm and cool, and we are ready to discuss the results of the past year. It's a pleasure for me to speak to you. This is not the first time we are discussing the milk quality matters, particularly with Irina Vysotska on raw milk quality parameters. I've always talked, check where I am, where the food quality or raw milk safety is. But now we are in a situation when we have to implement very specific mechanisms of raw milk quality assurance to help our businesses become better. And this is the main objective and the mission of the program. And I'd like to thank this program and our partners for what they have been doing, for the assistance to FBOs to become better. You do know that in late spring 2021, we wrapped up phase 1 and we planned subsequent steps, and lots was done in the second half of 2021. We actually doubled the number of labs. And practically speaking, 22 oblasts already have companies regularly using the service. We were able to collect a great deal of comments and observations from all of you with your vision of how the system and subsystems should work, how to streamline the processes, how to make them simpler. We had meetings with FBO representatives to hear from them on ways to improve the operational quality of the module. And this is not all. Together with colleagues, we have planned for this year, 2022, to go into the full scale, well, not to say invasion, but implementation. The module has been a voluntary business, and we've seen that everyone with interest in business development, they do use it, as also those interested in better access to international markets, they also use the module. Those interested in seeing the nation more healthy also are doing it and using the model, and we need to make our customers aware of that, and we need to talk more to the economic agents, individual farmers, companies, processors, and I call upon you to learn how to do it better, to come up with your feedbacks. Thank you for your will to learn and your intensive desire to make this country better. Thank you, dear Anatoly, for this good opening remark. And this is really something that imbues us with optimism. And I'd like to use this occasion to convey our gratitude to Vladislava Magaletsky, because it has been your team that initiated this invasion or penetration, if you would, with this program and the model, the one that will be implemented in every oblast. Thank you for this bold step. And I think the results we are going to discuss today will be telling and self-evident to confirm the correct decision. Now, Marco, Denardi, I do hope you can hear from us, and we'd like to hear from you as well.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. Dobro ranko to everybody. It's a pleasure again to be here. A very quick introduction from my side for those of you that have I had not had the pleasure to meet before. So my name is Marco Denardi. I'm the international expert in the quality food trade program, and I was also involved in the previous milk safety project, which set the basis for all the tasks we are currently implementing. So I work with Safoso, which is the Swiss implementing agency of the Quality Food Trade Program, together with the FBOs. And I must say that I'm very, very proud to be part of this team and to be part of this program. We started many years ago brainstorming about the pilot project, and we can see this a reality nowadays. A lot of efforts have been put in place, and a lot of achievements were made in the last years. And I must say, in the last year, 2021, we have really seen huge achievement in this sense. And I'm very, very proud of being part of this. And I think all the team have really made a great effort together with our partner in the project. So you also know that as part of this project, we develop a roadmap to upscale the pilot project at the national level. Anatoly has already mentioned this, and we will discuss also tomorrow about where we are with the roadmap. So a lot of efforts have been put in place. A lot of tasks were done, and this is why today's meeting and tomorrow's meeting are particularly important. We rely on you to improve the system, to get your feedback and try to make things working better and better every day. So with this, I would like to welcome again to the meetings. We have about 186 participants, which is really an impressive number. I wish you a very successful meeting to all of you. Don't be shy. Just as usual, provide your feedback. It is very important for us. Thank you very much, and I wish you a fruitful discussion.
Дуже дякуємо, Марко. На жаль, у нас
Thank you so much, Marco. Unfortunately, we had little time, technically speaking, to talk to our participants before the beginning of this event. And again, we welcome everyone who has joined. And before we start immediate discussion of results, we'd like to give you a glimpse of a mechanism I will show you actually that we will be using. This is a Mentimeter-based survey that we will offer you. And Lena, may I invite you to join this discussion to tell how Mentimeter is to be used and how we will be working as a big group today to hear everyone. Right. Yeah, morning, dear colleagues. I will not be switching on my camera not to break this connection, but already you can see the link with code in the chat, the link to Mentimeter, and you can see the same on screen, the web link and the code, and you're advised to use it to enter the website. And let us start by having a very brief kickoff survey, just to train our hands how we are going to proceed. I hope you can enter, you've been able to enter the website. And I see a couple of people have already voted. I cannot see the chat, unfortunately, but you can speak up if you have problems with connecting to Mentimeter. I hope that in some time we will be able to see the results. Dear colleagues, just please be proactive and join. So today we will be able to ask you for your opinions and feedbacks rather frequently. And we are to start with the question that underpins the reason of our work, which is the question, did you start this morning with a glass of milk? So you don't need to use the chat for that. Just use the link and the code to enter the website of the Mentimeter one, menti.com. To place your vote there, you can use your phone if you will. There will be many more important questions there throughout the day. Yet in the moment, we'd like you to answer this simple yet very important question. Dear Oksana, do not use chat for that, please. Please use your computer or phone to enter the menti.com, the Mentimeter program. Use your web browser and check for what Elena Rodnina has to say on chat. It's very important for us to see that you're able to use it, because we need all of you actively involved. So go on the website, enter the code, and press your preference. The range of answers. I see we have 52 votes already. Let us dwell for 1 minute more. 60. People are getting the traction with it, and we are going to see the results fairly soon. While we are voting, I'd just like to know, dear Anatoly, are you going to provide some more key points for the next session, or we are going to use the comments from Vitaly Vasilyevich? We have 84 votes, roughly half of those attending, and we have 10 seconds to go. Please use this time to join. Okay, the voting has been just closed, and we are ready to show the results. So we have a coffee day today. Still, the results are positive. We have 28 people promising to have the first glass of milk in the coffee break. So you see that Mentimeter is really a very nice means of communication with you. It's very important for us to hear from all of you, from competent authorities, from other pilot participants, from businesses, FBOs, and we go on with the program. I cannot hear anything from Anatoly, so I suggest we move on. Mykola Vasilovich, I'm ready to show your presentation on screen. First of all, I'd like to thank Marco. Hi, my dear friend, and I'd like to thank Marco and
Hi, Mykola.
Safoso
Nice to see you.
and the Swiss government. I'd like to thank Olena, Irina for this possibility of sharing experience to hear more how the milk and quality control is being done in the country that has probably one of the highest, if not the highest, milk quality standards, higher than that in the EU. I am very much sure that at last we will make it possible here so that our FBOs and our food safety service are fully ready to implement it in Ukrainian conditions. And I do hope it will work, providing good results for every one of us. And thank you again. Thank you for your work, involvement, engagement, professionalism, and zeal to implement it. And we will start from scratch, from where we started, and describe where we are going. As you can see on the slide, we started with just 4 oblasts and 4 labs. And I have to tell you, not everything went smoothly as we wanted it, and we had some, hurdles and handicaps. But thanks to this desire and intent, and thanks to Safoso, the module and the project received prolongation, and now we can see how the situation has changed, particularly how it changed in 2021 when phase 2 was kicked off, the second phase of the project. One thing that I'm not completely clear for me, and I will inquire after that, is how the Odessa Oblast exercises its control measures. The results of the state control can be recognized only with accredited labs, and I'm not completely sure what happens in Odessa Oblast, how they do this milk quality control with no labs for the indicators of interest for us. But this merits separate discussion, and we are going to look into details. I do hope that we will sort this out. I see that the majority of oblasts have joined, and this is a correct decision of theirs. I can only suggest to everyone that we should be more proactive in adding our feedbacks on how to better implement the project in Ukrainian circumstances. Possibly there are certain nuances, local specifics that has to be looked into, and the more we discuss, the more we talk about it, the better and the more optimal will be the model that we are going to have in Ukraine. Who knows, maybe we still hope it will be even better than Switzerland at the end of it. It's always good, to go higher than your teacher. So I would suggest everyone continues working on that in your region, in your oblast, and we are really satisfied with seeing much less gray areas. We are very much sure that we'll be able to get rid of all the gray areas with your support, with our engagement. We will go and get rid of them. I promise it to you. We will better be able to affect those processes. given that the milk quality measures, particularly for exporting enterprises, is very important. And given the WTO requirements, there should be uniform requirements for everyone, for importing, for exporting entities, and the approach should be uniform. So I suggest you engage better, and we have to work a lot on that. I do understand there are some changes in the state control on that, but there are also obligations for FBOs. They have to implement measures of their own related to inspection and testing, and FBOs have to be able to show the results, and we need to do some explanatory job, particularly regarding inspections. And I have a specific focus on exporters with a view of those moratorium requirements and certain risk assessment results. Again, the exporters address you, and whenever they want to enter markets in different countries, in other countries, they have to be verified and checked in terms of measures to ensure quality within the scope of their obligations as spoken in law. There are specific quality indicators to be followed. So I call upon everyone to join the project. This will not be used as a state control measure, but this will be a very efficient tool to help this state control go as planned. So next slide, please. And just to point out, we have 3 oblasts which are leaders, which have taken the lead in terms of data processing and using the models in terms of the FBO coverage, also in terms of the number of inspections. And I think during the discussion, the oblast representatives will be able to share their information on how state control measures are being used when granting permits on access to external markets. And we will hear more about how applications for permits are being processed and what are the responsibilities of state inspectors and controlling officers. And now we can see the dynamics. We can see how the oblasts have joined, the path of joining. It's very nice to see the first oblast we had, those who joined later on, after the start of the pilot with 4 oblasts. Unfortunately, there are some problems with the first pilot oblast. Some of them had issues and not everything. You know, I have to work as an advocate for Kharkiv Oblast. They've been involved in the school catering reform, and from the outset they had very specific situation in Oblast. It was the time when we were testing the model. Yeah, I do agree. I do agree. Everyone was able to choose. I did participate at the time when models were selected. I was an active participant from the outset. I do remember how models were chosen and who did that and how we did it jointly with the service. So, well, if something wasn't without problem, I think every start has some problems. Yeah, this is what the pilot is about. Exactly. We wanted to see which model serves us better. It was very good to see that we have different models in use, and that we were ultimately able to select something from different sources which suits us the best, actually. So again, I invite everyone to join the module to do the explanatory job, and the number of registered delegates in region, in oblasts, should grow, and should grow parallel to the growth of trust in each other. We are doing a common thing. But still, the responsibility lies with the state service, particularly the responsibility in front of international organizations and other countries, before their own citizens. This is the key function of the state service. The manufacturers have lots of responsibility, but the state service has it the most. So the level of awareness and the level of trust should increase.
So I encourage everyone to find those common points, and so that we avoid any negative experiences, because I have fresh example, and the reason why I stressed on Kharkiv Oblast, and Irina knows their FBOs, the company that is exporting to Europe, but now it appears that he was not aware that they need to confirm that the raw materials are in line with the European quality standards when supplying raw milk to other processing farms. And we have discussed that with the staff of the territorial offices. We have discussed that on any audit, both for meat and fish products, as well as milk. But for some reason, some were not aware of it. So my guess is that there is a little bit of the challenge with communicating information, and we will, of course, try to resolve that. So once again, when we visit our oblasts, we will see how you are using the dairy module. We will see how it works for you, and how really the results are accurate, and how you are managing this process, and how you are aware of its benefits and its significance, and how you understand your duties as inspectors, and also as producers and processors, how you understand the importance of compliance with this concept from field to fork, and how you are using this information for the decision making. Thank you, Irina. I will continue. We see this good results, that the number of FBOs of the regions where there is a lot of communication and awareness, we see that the figures prove really good results. We have 95, 62. Well, in some regions, the numbers are much lower. Perhaps there are not many FBOs there, but I would not believe that they only have very few FBOs, that perhaps they have not had a chance to trust this dairy module. And the question is it the lack of trust to the state service or lack of trust to one another? And I think we need to work on really building this trust and improving it at every stage, every level. So I want to stress again that we need to work towards that. And tomorrow we will discuss it further, that the roadmap has been developed and everyone has its responsibilities. They will be responsible for their own oblast and for their own share of work. In some oblasts, we have really wonderful results, and perhaps we can use their experience and they can share their best practices. And I think it's good if you talk to each other and share your experience. You don't need us to even organize it centrally. You can get in touch with each other and share your challenges and your successes. We had a practice of doing that in the past. Unfortunately, now the situation makes it a bit difficult, but remember how we were sharing our common challenges and best practices. And I think this is also a good area to do that. So thank you for your hard work, and those who need to work harder, I encourage you to do that. Because first of all, and we talked about that yesterday actually, that we are going to develop the strategic development plan for the industry, for the dairy industry, and for the industry to develop, we need to ensure high quality of the products. And for ensuring high quality, we need to ensure the high quality of the raw materials. And the use of good equipment like centrifuges is, of course, all good, but we need to work on improving the quality of the raw milk using the methods and tools that are widely used in in the whole of the civilized world. Thank you for your attention, and I invite you to continue with us. I want to thank you personally, Mikola, because some participants may not be aware that when we started in the first regions back in 2019, the first meetings when we were communicating to the FBOs, to our target audience, why it is important to introduce raw milk control procedures and using the dairy milk. That work was very important. It was like a groundbreaking work, and we want to thank you for stressing these important points to our participants. But also I will be an advocate of all those other gray oblasts, because the results of 2022 are even more encouraging comparing to 21. But today we will focus on our calendar year, the 2021. And I also want to focus your attention to the number of FBOs and compare to those who are already registered in the dairy module. So let us focus on discussing the intermediate results. We will see how the road map is developing, and then we can compare the number of existing FBOs and the number of those registered in the dairy model. It's a good idea, and we promise that we will definitely have this comparison next time so that we have a more objective picture, because Poltava is leading now in 2022, and we will discuss that tomorrow. And Natalia is now on a business trip in Kharkiv, and tomorrow she will join us, and we will hear from her how that happened, that in Poltava the number of FBOs tripled in 2022. Thank you, Mikola. And before we move to the
thank you, Mikola, also
situation,
from my side. It was a great presentation and results are really impressive. Thank you very much.
Дякую, Марко. Тобто ми вже розуміємо
thank you, Marco. So we understand the situation with the input data. There are some registered laboratories in some regions, but perhaps there are no ready FBOs that are willing to work with them. In other oblasts, they have FBOs, but there are no labs available. So the first thing we have to do is that each oblast will have this opportunity to provide the lab testing. And in 2022, I hope that more labs will join us and this situation will be more balanced. But what is the real picture with the quality in those FBOs and milk collection points, because we do work with milk collection points. And thank you to Sumy, Mykolaiv, and Vinnytsia Oblast and others, of course, who are engaging their milk collection points. And for that, I would like to invite Oksana Novokhatnya to make a presentation. Will you share your screen? Yes. Just a second, I will give you the right to share your screen. And we visited many oblasts together with Oksana, where we did special seminars, both for the FBOs and the state service staff, and we try to communicate the importance of using this raw milk control program. This is not just the pilot project, but these are mandatory testing. And now Oksana will present the results that we have received. Hello. First of all, I want to ask if you can see my slides. No, we cannot. Just a second. We cannot see your slides yet. It's a new computer.
Починається. І, будь ласка, зробіть на
Now we can see the slides. Perhaps you can zoom out.
Але ми не бачимо цього повного екрану.
We don't see the full screen mode yet.
Спробуйте згорнути ваш екран. Так, і
Try to close it and then share all the screens. This is a bit challenging for the Zoom to work. Yeah, you need to close it.
ще раз, будь ласка, згорніть.
Припинити демонстрацію екрану.
Stop sharing the screen first.
Демонстрацію, але не тільки PowerPoint, а повністю.
And then start sharing again all your open windows. Perhaps you can share your screen so that we don't waste time.
Окей, тільки припиніть тоді, будь ласка, демонстрацію.
Okay, then please stop sharing your screen for me to do that.
Поки технічно ми відкриваємо.
While we are trying to share the screen, I will make a short announcement. Today is the day for us to present the results. These results are already summarized in a big report. So we, together with the state service, want to thank everyone because this report includes all your recommendations, your proposals that you sent to us following the pilot project. And I'm talking now to the main departments. This report includes the results of all the surveys that we have done and the lab testing as well. And Oksana will present the lab testing results. Yes, thank you for helping me to share the screen. First of all, I want to thank the Swiss-Ukrainian project for all the support and all the work that we have done together. And the work continues. And it includes the work with FBOs in giving many answers to their questions, but also it was a full-fledged training course for the state inspectors, for the milk producers, as well as everyone who are using the dairy module. The implementation of this pilot project and implementation of this raw milk control program using the dairy module has a lot of significance for Ukraine, because Ukraine has committed to implement European acquis to its national legislation. And thanks to this project, we have some initial results. And for that, we are starting the second phase of the pilot program to disseminate the dairy model in all regions of Ukraine. And to summarize, I want to show you the results that we have received during 2021. All lab testing that have been done in the framework of the raw milk control program, the sample testing was done in line with the requirements of the order of Ministry of Agriculture number 118, and you are all aware of this order, and that includes all the indicators, and our goal is to have total microbial count at the level of 500,000 and the somatic cell count at the level 400,000. And we are approaching, although we still have 2 years ahead of us, our goal is to move as fast as possible to the target indicators, or even having better results than target indicators, as Mykola mentioned. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see the trend on sampling and testing over the last 3 years. If you take 2019, we see that the total microbial count we had 71 samples. In 2021, it was already 3,837 samples. So as you can see, we had only 4 regions in the beginning. Now we have the whole of Ukraine. And thanks to such oblasts as Sumy, who are leaders, they have engaged all the milk producers to the dairy module. And it shows the positive trend, because the more producers are using the dairy module, the more samples are tested, and the more we are able to get a statistically accurate results. If you look at the number of somatic cells, we also see the increased number of samples from 51 to 2043. The inhibitors and freezing point are the indicators that are done on the voluntary basis. So the number of these samples was a bit lower, but they still have to develop the procedures to do all the lab testing, including inhibitors and the freezing point, because having the drug residues this milk is not in compliance to be sold on the market and used for the production of other dairy products.
So the total bacterial count shows we have 3,837 samples, and the number of values is just one figure less. The median value is 160,000. But unfortunately, based on lab results, when analyzing the information, we can see quite a disparate set of results. And in order to get a more fair arithmetic median, we had to cut off 10% of the indicators at the level of 49,000 and 10% on the level of 427,000, which means that the mean arithmetic average is fluctuating between 0.25 quantile and 0.75 quantile. And the median value is really indicative of huge fluctuation, which shows the problem that we have. And I think after the seminar we are having today, I'd like every territorial body, every lab to pay attention to seek the root of the problem, particularly where indicators fluctuate from 41,000 to more than 2 million. And as we are the pilot project, I think we have to identify the root of the problem to see where the fluctuations come from, whether it is at the stage of sample collection or transportation, or maybe somehow FBOs are not able to cope with hygienic requirements, because one and the same company may have completely different set of values, and this begs for attention. Next slide, please. If we take these indicators to see on a monthly basis, we'll see that the most critical months with most deviations are July and September, about 181,000 for July and about 150,000 for September. This is the median value. And 235,000 were calculated for this period. And the question is what companies are involved and why these fluctuations occur. We need to have a closer look to reduce the risk of going unreliable results. If the results are not stable, not stable enough, it may mean that we are still not ready for the transition period instituted by the Decree 118. And this also means that we are failing behind some standard values. And despite certain geometric mean values, we definitely see deficiencies in the results, and this will require better and more detailed look into the true reasons behind them. Next slide, please. The slide shows information on grouped capacities of milk production and collection based on TBC in 2021 on a monthly basis. And summarizing the previous information, we see that less than 100 was for 247 companies, with actual number of fluctuation being among 207 companies, which shows that there are huge fluctuations per companies that may reach up to 500. This is well within the norm, but again, we have 35 companies going beyond the value of 5,000. So based on the results of our calculations, we obtained only just 4 production facilities going beyond the allowed values. And nearly the same amount of companies are duplicated in the block where less than 100 to the block contain information of 3 to 500 and more than 500. So the information has been provided with due regard to the mean geometric average for the reporting period. The next slide shows the somatic cell count lab results. There are no big differences, not as big differences as in previous case here, because the indicators are not as sensitive to transportation, to tools and instruments used for testing, and using the same calculation principle as for total bacterial count. We see that the median value is 170,000, with the mean arithmetic average being more than 222,000 and standard deviation of nearly 200,000, which means that actual values are scattered not really far from the median compared with TBC values. And for me, these results are more representative and more valid. This slide shows information for oblasts on a monthly basis with median values. And we have detailed representation of the indicators mentioned on the previous slide. And again, we see that median values show some seasonal fluctuation, peaking in May, September, and October. Again, the median value is 177,000, with 178 and 167,000 in September and October respectively, and 237,500 in May. And the reporting year indicator of 222,000 shows that the norm has been adhered to according to the order, and sometimes we even go better than the threshold established for the transition period until 2024. Definitely, the information will require more thorough processing, also in terms of collection and research agents. Here we see the grouping of facilities on a monthly basis, and we have the information based on the somatic cell count and based on the calculation of mean geometric average for 3 periods. Provides us with information about 3 facilities going beyond the threshold. And in this case, we don't see too much overshooting. The actual number of companies is 351. And 90 companies with actual numbers in the range of 400,000 and 500,000, which says that probably the figures stand to the point, and we are quite ready to start implementing EU legislative requirements on that, which may provide better solution for problems the exporters face. And I'd like to thank you for your involvement, for the work you've done. We truly have the results we can work on, we can discuss, we can analyze, we are better able to identify problem areas, and we are better able to tell in which direction to move to identify and weed out the problems that may affect lab testing results. I think one of possible issues relates to the fact that the labs authorized by the State Food Safety Service are not always able to show them the ISO-based methods. But we see where to go from here, and I think this is a positive sign. I'd like to wish everyone good spirit to continue work, and let us analyze the results to look for better outcomes. Thank you, Oksana. Thank you so much. We've got quite a detailed analysis with explanations. Even the descriptive statistical data were there, and I do see already comments in the chat, and we still have time to talk, to discuss it. There is a comment in chat. One of the reasons for fluctuations can be attributed to errors when entering data. The problem is these errors cannot be corrected, but this is just one of the reasons. And this is very important, particularly at the initial stage of working with the module. Okay, let me take this comment. We worked on the data jointly with the colleagues, and it really was worked on, and we were able to cut off data that were not, I'd say, physiologically attributable to intended result. And taking this possibility of talking to nearly 200 attendees, I'm practically sure that nearly half of you represent the labs. So, dear colleagues, the module allows entering natural numbers, so you don't need to enter zeros, and not the SEC, not TBC cannot go less than 5,000. So if you have a figure less than certain threshold, you should be dubious and in doubt yourself, because it is not physiologically possible. And even hygienic activities may not explain TBC being less than 5,000. It is not possible. So, dear colleagues, we had to cut off this data, and these were not included in our calculations. And they were not included in the analysis. A good question from Svetlana. Is it possible for the lab to carry out tests beyond the sector before this indicator is included into the scope of accreditation of a lab? That's a nice question for tomorrow, dear Svetlana. And I see a question from you, Marco, please.
Yeah, I would like to thank Oksana for the very informative presentation. I think it was really great to see the statistics related to the samples. So we saw that there were 30, when I'm correct, 35 food business operator which were on the extreme exceeding threshold for total bacterial count, and 26 farm for the somatic cell count, which were at the extreme level of exceeding the threshold. I wonder whether we have information about if these 26 belongs to the 35 farms. Are we talking of the same unit here or not? And if we have this information.
Саме інформація стосувалася,
The information had about total microbial count. Yes, these farms are part of that number. Oksana, I want to clarify what Marco was asking. Are these FBOs the same farms that have incompliances for both indicators? Unfortunately, we have not conducted this analysis. It was only the microbial count analysis. But I want to say that if there are incompliances in one indicator, most probably there are incompliances in the other indicators. In 90% of cases, it will be the same farm.
Okay, thank you very much. I also think so.
We already got a task from Mikola to compare the existing FBOs and those who registered in the dairy module. Next task is from Marco, is to compare the FBOs, those who are incompliant with one indicator, whether they're incompliant on the other. Thank you for these kind of directions for us to follow. What else we have in the chat? The question is, let us know who should provide the sterile packaging for transporting milk. I'm not sure who is asking, is it a lab or an operator? If you're continuing on the topic of the microbial count, tomorrow we will discuss it in greater detail, that this is the responsibility of the whose responsibility that is. Okay, we have no more questions in the chat, but we are still continue to work because we want to work together now interactively in the Mentimeter. And now you have to go back to this website, menti.com, as you have done earlier today in the beginning of our meeting. And we want to consult with you. We had a good opportunity to see all the results, mostly the absolute results, the number of the registered FBOs and the labs and delegates and the samples. And we also know the task of the pilot project to cover all the oblasts of Ukraine and to analyze the available resources, including labs, transportation, etc. And based on that, we have to prepare FBOs to talk to them, which we have done. In each oblast, we have conducted a seminar, 24 seminars in total. In some oblasts, like in Donetsk and Luhansk, we talked with them together with you, and you have seen the results of Mykola's and Oksana's presentations. Let us know, do you believe that this phase of the pilot project is fully implemented in your oblast as was planned in the concept? And I want to remind you that we have revised the concept in the spring of 2021 so that every oblast would be able to implement it. And the basic changes were that the sampling delegate would be exclusively either a lab specialist or authorized veterinarian, and in some rare cases, an inspector. The rest remained almost without any changes. We are working exclusively with the labs who are using ISO methods for these tests. So that was our basic concept. And I am asking Olena to help us use the Mentimeter. Yes, I hope now it is easier for you to use Mentimeter. You can use QR code, and I saw that over 30 participants already voted. You need to either go to the link in the chat, or you can just go to the menti.com website and enter this code, or just use the QR code. And I hope that everyone is able to do that. I see that we have 47 participants who have casted their votes. Let us set the timer. Thank you, Olena, because before we go to the next question, it's important for us to see your results, or your opinion on the performance of your oblast. And we know that we have FBOs here who probably are not aware about the concept. Perhaps you have not had a chance to read the concept, but still you attended our seminars. Perhaps you attended some meetings that we organized at the district level. Some oblasts only had meetings with producers or with processors, but still there was a lot of communication. But we are interested to hear how this was implemented, this idea, this design of the pilot project. How was it really implemented? When we worked exclusively with authorized delegates. And the FBOs perhaps had to also provide this transportation. We left that possibility in the concept, taking into account the circumstances of some farms that have the smaller herd, like less than 50. Okay, we have 70 responses. The time is up, but people are still voting, so let's give them another minute. Okay, we do have extra time. Unfortunately, Anatoly was not able to join us. I received a message because he actually had to speak on the goals of the concept, but we all understand the idea behind it, that it's independent, unbiased sampling, representative sampling at the place of production or storage of milk, and the testing of samples in authorized accredited labs. Okay, we have 10 more seconds. I hope all the participants were able to vote. So in 2 seconds, we will see results on the screen. We see the results. Blue is yes, pink is no, red is I don't know. Okay, most probably we expected this response, I don't know. And I imagine that these are FBOs who responded, I don't know, or I'm not aware of that. But before we start the discussion, I would like to see the percentage, not just the absolute figures. Can you show us that? Okay, yes, now you can see the percentage. So more than 50% of participants believe that. Okay, we will have a discussion. So they believe that their oblast was able to implement this concept. It's hard to disagree because we saw the dark blue areas on the map of Ukraine. The brighter the color, the more results have been achieved. 28% still don't agree. Perhaps the concept was not fully implemented. There have been some fluctuations, which can be explained by some lack of labs that are able to use the qualified methods, or they are not accredited to do that, or there have been some other technical barriers. And if you want to unmute yourself and comment on that, it would be a good thing to do. Have there been other technical barriers in your oblast, in addition to the lab inability to do the testing? We need to know about that, and it will be really good if you hear about that today. You can unmute yourself and share, and then we can go back to the questions in the chat. Is anyone willing to comment? Okay, while you're still thinking, I'm checking the chat.
Yeah, I think this is, sorry, Irina, this is a very important moment for us. We really need clarification on the negative in feedback, okay? Because if not, we cannot really improve. So this is really your chance to provide us with your reasoning why you think the objectives were not fully met. And you can use the chat, or you can express with your voice. But please do it.
У нас, Марко, спрацювало. Марко, ти сьогодні більш переконаний.
Marco, you're more convincing today, actually. We have some responses. Now we have a colleague, Sergey Goncharov. He raised his hand from Cherkasy, if I'm not mistaken. Sergey, please go ahead. Hello, dear colleagues. I'm very happy to welcome everyone today in such a large number. Well, about the implementation of the dairy module, I can comment on Cherkasy Oblast, and perhaps that is relevant for the whole of Ukraine. One of the issues that creates a barrier to implement the dairy model is the organizational challenge. Some technical issues connected to the software itself, because the delegates, they go to the farms in the early morning hours, because the sampling is done in a synchronized morning milking time. So, and we are all aware of these challenges. There are technical issues with the dairy module, because we planned the sampling, we took the samples, but then the movement stops. You know, this may happen very frequently, and that can really spoil the statistics. And another thing, what Mykola already mentioned about the trust to the state service and the FBOs, and we need to say that at the local level, when we tried to implement the dairy module in Cherkasy Oblast, one of the relevant issues was, and we actually started everything by inviting people, inviting, first of all, exporters, the milk processors. And we realized that the exporters and processors do not always have any influence to the producers, on the producers. And the processors depend on the producers, and they're afraid to kind of have a voice or put pressure on them, because the milk producers sense, well, they have this feeling of freedom because of this moratorium for the plant inspections. So this constructive dialogue is a bit of a challenge, because they're trying to use the situation for their own benefits. So we need to have some solutions to the organizational challenges, and to have a better dialogue, to have this kind of chain of between the producers and processors and the competent authority, because their interaction plays a big role here. Also, we use the law 2042 And at the level of the central office of the state service, I think it makes sense to make amendments into the Article 40 of this law, because our milk producers have, well, they're reading this law, they're aware of it. And these provisions in this article, how the requirement is described in this law, is lacking more clarity. And I actually expected the new version of this law to be more specific, but actually it's not, because the list of tests that are mandatory for the FBOs in the Article 40 is outlined in such a way that FBOs can interpret it differently. So it's a bit vague. And the producers are not really open for the dialogue. And it's not so much about the trust towards the competent authority, but the question is that every FBO are counting their money and using their privileged position in selecting who they sell their milk to which processor. The processors are in such a difficult situation that they are kind of their hands are tied. So these changes into the law are really important, considering that the Order 118 is also like a legislation that has to be enforced. So that really creates a difficulty in implementing this dairy module. Perhaps I was not very specific in describing this, but I tried.
Я вам навпаки дуже вдячна.
It's okay, Sergey. I'm very thankful to you for that. Maybe someone would like to reflect on that, on this your comment, which really describes the situation, not just in your oblast, but also in the relationships between the producers and processors in Ukraine, given that we have representatives of both FBOs here. Anyone willing to?
Тому що справді я не бачу піднятих рук, так? Якщо
Well, no hands.
звуком, будь ласка, піднімайте руку. Я не
If you want to speak up, just let me know.
Можливо, коментуйте далі в чаті.
Or you can use the chat to comment.
Треба рухатися далі. Пане Сергію,
And we have to move on. So, dear Sergey, your comments were very instrumental, and we will revisit the matter of legislation and relevant proposals from Oblast when talking with Oksana in the second part of our meeting of today.
Я бачу три учасника хочуть
I see three hands.
порядку, хто зробив.
I was able to identify who was the first.
Отже, я просто йду в порядку учасників.
So let us go as it gets. We have Sumi.
З мікрофоном.
Vitaly, please, you can use your mic. Yeah. Good morning. I'd like to comment the relationships between raw milk producers with others using our own experience. There has been no big misunderstanding or, apprehension on behalf of raw milk producers. Some individual cases, yes, but generally speaking, about our communication with producers and in terms of those processing plants they supply to. And we talked to heads of those processing plants to see how they comply with Order 118. And we had directors of all those processing plants. And there were explanations that the order 118 has to be complied with. And the feedback, the reactions were, I would say, rather positive, mixed bags of reaction, but still in one district, we had all the plans, but one joined the initiative. There was one refusal from signing the contract. We had talks with our peers from other oblasts in terms of how their relationships go on. And just in a matter of couple of days, we were able to sort this out. So I would not go into problem issues. Maybe we will have a chance to tackle them later on. But I think it's about working with raw milk producers. If we have good communication, it works. It's very important also to have, for inspectors, local inspectors, to have good positive image there. There were individual cases, but in the majority of cases, the inspection officer was in place and the veterinarian was in place, and they were quite able to do what they were required to. There were some financial aspects related to transportation of samples, but I think we will talk about that later on. Yeah, thank you, Vitaly. So we've got feedbacks from the main department of the State Food Safety Service in Cherkasy Oblast and from their colleagues in Sumy Oblast. And we have to go to the next point of discussion. We've started it. But before that, Ruslan Panas, do you represent the Oblast department? No, I represent the market operator. Okay. I'm not sure if you can hear me well, because I'm completely in the different part on the different parts of the world. But we gladly joined this project. We are glad to participate in it. Which oblast do you represent, by the way? I represent Lviv Oblast, the elite milk farm. So regarding the previous speaker's comment, he said that not every time milk producers are easy to contact. I can assure you that we do not have this problem in Lviv Oblast. We have very nice cooperation with the State Food Safety Service, with the veterinarian service. And I think the problem may be that local veterinary medics and delegates are not always provided with necessary tools and so on, which prevents them from doing the job properly. In terms of moratorium on inspections, let us have another look at it. The number of raw milk producers grows. And we can see the figures, the indicators related to milk quality. So I think we are ready to cooperate. Okay, thank you. Thank you indeed. And actually, we intend to implement the risk-oriented approach when the inspection officer is able to draw his complete attention to really the problematic producer. We are completely in favor of seeing those inspection officers anytime, day and night. The question is for them to be able to do it. They have to be provided with everything they need to do it. I think this is what they have in Switzerland. Right. Thank you, Ruslan. And we'll have to reach this stage. As the voting takes a lot of time, I suggest we quickly shoot another question in the scope of this survey, and we will discuss what we have in chat, and the chat is full. Dear colleagues, the link is the same, and you are going to see the QR code You can use it as well, and please start voting. The timer will be set for 1 minute. Thank you, Lena. Dear colleague, you did take notice of the question, right? So the question, we have the concept or the action plan, we have the vision of the remote control program expressed in the concept and implemented in the region. And that was before. Now we talk about pilot project objectives. And one of the key objectives was to provide the maximum possible rollout of it in each oblast, so that oblast is able to see what is needed for oblast to become ready also to use and implement the dairy module. And I see Bogdan Pustovit joining us. It's a nice coincidence that you joined in when I started mentioning the dairy module. And actually, the dairy module is still in its testing mode, and delegates really suffered from that. It was not convenient for them because of this testing phase. They were not happy with no auto launch possibility. So we have Bogdan with us, and we will go back to that right after the break. Also in the scope of day 2, second part of day 2. So we still have the voting on, and we stopped on Ruslan's comment. And Ruslan has to say that in a civilized world, no farm is engaged in sample transportation. This is nonsensical. Well, that's a nice comment, but really, this is not. This should not be the problem for a farm based on Swiss, German, Austrian, Canadian experience. This is what processing plants do, and this is what they do on a daily basis, going to the manufacturers, collecting samples and properly monitoring the cooling of samples and getting those samples in batches to bring them to the lab. One important and interesting difference in Switzerland is that, well, they have some specific logistics circumstances. They have just one big lab that serves everyone, but they collect samples on a daily basis. The plants do know the procedure. So the model is quite complex. And we see responses to the question. So these are not percentages, I think. Alena, can you show us percentages? Yeah. Okay. It's natural that not everyone is aware of the pilot project objectives. I will repeat them for you, and really every oblast has to be ready to implement it. And whenever the dairy module program will be approved, come next January, it has to be implemented. So again, 64% think that the objectives have been reached and met. And I will make the print screen of the screen. So are we still voting? Yeah, we are still voting. Okay, then go to the chat. Those who have problems with the phone or internet, just try to vote. We still have time. Okay, we have a statement that the majority of labs currently do not do 2 tests on inhibitor test at the freezing point. And there is a comment that I think, by the way, Donetsk colleagues. So they comment that sometimes the impossibility of attracting FBOs to the program in Donetsk Oblast may be related to the fact that authorized labs at the moment are accredited to national standards. And they further say that the matters of optimizing the lab network are currently under review, and because of that, labs may not make any decision related to their accreditation according to international standards. I'd love to hear more comment on the chat message initiative. There is another comment that one of the problems may be related to the sample collection and transportation chain in terms of equipment, sterile equipment, sample collection kits, as well as documentation and price of those sample testing. So dear Svetlana, maybe you could add some specific thing to your written comment. Unfortunately, I cannot hear Svetlana, but we are going to have more discussion during the second phase of our event. Probably Svetlana is able to join us after the break. So, dear colleagues, I see we were able to cover every matter mentioned in the chat. There are no more hands raised here, and we can confidently state that the first task for today related to the evaluation of results of lab tests, as well as evaluation of results of pilot projects implementation in general, have been covered. There is, Lena, I suggest you add a comment in chat because we want people to continue voting further on, and we can go further to other points in our agenda, but this will come after the break, which will last for 20 minutes. We may remind you that 28 participants promised to use the first glass of milk in the break. Please don't forget about that. Enjoy your coffee, hopefully with milk.
Colleagues, hello to those of you who have just joined us, and thank you to those who continue working with us. I suggest we go along the agenda, and the next part of our agenda includes 2 more presentations from the central office of the State Service, and following the presentations, we will have a Q&A session. So please keep your questions in the chat. Try to make them very specific, or at the end of the presentation, so you can unmute yourself and ask your questions. So, okay, we have touched the topic of the dairy module, that it was the most challenging for the delegates, especially because the module is still in the testing mode and there is no an auto launch possibility. The auto launch means that we had to engage an administrator who had to reload the module because of some errors or whatever. But I want to make a few points before we hear the next presentation. The dairy module was developed and approved in June 2018. And for the IT product, it's a bit of a kind of outdated version, and we do have to upgrade it. And for this particular reason, the second phase was for us to engage as many users as possible. And we understand that the number of active users will not be that many who will be able to give the evaluation of the software, but we will hear now the feedback summary from Bogdan. He is now the acting head of the IT department and digitalization at the state service. And while Bogdan is preparing to share his slides, I want to thank on behalf of all our team and everyone who is in our Viber support group, I want to thank Bogdan, because to be honest, we need to recognize because Bogdan is the only responsible for the dairy module in the headquarter of the state service. And he is not the, of course, an IT support officer, but nevertheless, he understands the module very well. And many of you had a chance to talk to him, and we want to thank him again for his support. So, okay, the floor now is going to Bogdan. Thank you, Irina, for your kind words. Colleagues, I'm happy to greet you. Some of you I have met personally, some of you I met remotely. Okay, my name is Bogdan, for those who don't know me, and I'm acting head of the IT department of the state service. And I'm working as administrator of this dairy module. So you're interacting with me in terms of any challenges or any operations of the dairy module. And in my presentation, I would like to tell you about the status quo of the dairy module in terms of its technical features. As you have seen before from participation in the survey, we have done it recently in November and December last year. The purpose of this survey was to get your feedback on how the software operates, to receive your proposals in terms of how we can improve it, the features that you would like to add or improve. And we had a lot of participants in the survey, and we are very grateful. And the state service and me personally want to thank you for your comments and your feedback. Many people gave us a lot of suggestions. And for me personally, I learned a lot of interesting things about the new features that could improve the operation of this software. As you can see, the whole of Ukraine is covered, and the whole of Ukraine participated in the survey. And that's great. We have really good feedback, representative feedback. And let's go deeper. The main challenges for the users are about functionality of the software. And as Irina mentioned before, the terms of reference was done in 2018. So yes, it was good for that time, but for today, it's probably not what we want to keep for the future. The first and the main thing, we need to upgrade the functional features and to change the interface of the system to make it more user-friendly and to improve its functionality, and to optimize all the processes so that they are more convenient for you as the end users. To be more specific about the comments that we have received, the most frequently mentioned comments is communication. And as Irina already said, I was the final contact person for you to contact, and I was the one who told others what should be done. So it's not enough just having me. And for the future, we would suggest to have kind of a user support center or organizing a call center so that everyone can get a quick support for the sampling in the morning milking hours, because it happens that at 4 a.m. someone calls you asking, how do I enter this data? So we don't want this to be a problem, and we want the call center to kind of take this function of supporting you. We also had a problem with authorization. Since the dairy module software has two-factor authorization, so additional authorization was a bit of a problem, because this initial resource was involved with many other systems, and for some users that have been registered in the other systems, it was a problem with authorization, but we have resolved it, and currently it should be working fine. And on behalf of the state service, the feedback that we got from the state service is having enough staff to support the dairy module. For the future, like I said, it would be really important to have more staff and to establish a call center for the labs, for the inspectors, and everyone who is using the software. Another shortcoming was no access to the information for the FBOs, like so that they can see the compliance with all the legal requirements, because some data may not have been entered correctly and they want to have access to see it. So, but half of these shortcomings have been already resolved. So we hear you, we try to work on resolving all the challenges. In terms of the users, we separated this section to show the feedback from the users. The users want to see a more clear picture. They want to be able to see what they're doing. So changing interface, basically. Many users pointed to the fact that the interface it doesn't have certain things which are critical for their work. And you can see that the majority of users are not satisfied with this functionality, with these features. So we will work to change the interface and to add additional features. Going deeper, I would like to describe some of the problems that have been specifically mentioned. Most users had a problem with authorization, which I already mentioned, and we have overcome this problem successfully. So we are trying to do it step by step to make life better for the users. Next is the lack of some of the functions, changing the data entered within 1 hour. Many users make errors when entering data. We are aware of this problem. The most important feature that is lacking is that they don't see print preview. Like after entering the data, they need to have a window where they can verify the correctness, the accuracy of the data. And after this verification, they can publish the results. So this function is still missing. And I can tell you that we are working to make it, to implement it during the second phase. So in a short while, you will have this feature and you will see that it will really make your life better. And it will really simplify your job. Next was the duplication of the sampling acts. Some users had real actual acts with the numbers that they have entered into the dairy module, but there was a problem of duplication. So for the future, we also will work on resolving it. So the system should not duplicate, but to make the it should make a copy, but not a duplication. Another difficulty that was mentioned is that the lab staff said that they received boiled milk, not the raw milk. Well, that was not a big problem, but it was still mentioned. Also, some FBOs mentioned that they don't have computer equipment available. And for the future, we are planning to make the dairy module available on the mobile devices. So we are planning to create a mobile app so that it is user-friendly for the inspectors and for any users when they have to travel and go to a farm and take samples. So everything will be convenient using this mobile app. And as I already mentioned, state service will allocate more staff to work in the raw milk control program and the operations of the dairy module. Hopefully, after some time, there will be more people and there will be a call center established. So these are the tasks for the second phase of the upgrading of the dairy module. And the additional proposals that we have received from responders of this survey would be to complete the dairy module with the function of issuing veterinary certificates. Since the dairy module will eventually be merged with the lab system, we will also work towards that, and it will be implemented in the nearest future. So these proposals that you see on the screen will be also taken into implementation. Mobile app is also part of this list. Also a possibility to indicate the volume of the milk collected, because many users mentioned that it is important, the volume of the batch of the milk. Another proposal was, or actually a request, the users that have the rights of oblast administrators or any administrator rights, they would like to expand their functionality. They don't want to have this kind of limitations when they have to make a phone call for any additional feature. With the increasing the functionality for the administrators, they can get a SMS, text message, or a quick phone call, and they can enter changes that the users are asking. So we will work towards that, and it will improve the system of all the users.
And actually, the most useful function, the functionality that have been ticked off for improvement, is about SMS messaging and reporting to notify inspector about the overshooting of maximum thresholds of indicators as a measure of additional control. And an inspection officer, if there is a human factor, he might use that like, a systemic warning that something is off and you should verify. So this is the functionality that will really add to the administrator function and will simplify the life and work of users. And actually, this is my last point to brighten your day. Thank you for your attention. It might sound like a small technical nuance, but I think lots of updates are expected on behalf of the Food Safety Service, and this will translate into better functionality, better workability, and better quality of dairy products. Thank you. Bogdan, can you stay with us? I have about half an hour for you. Okay, then let's go on as intended. I just wanted to ask you to tell you that Q&A will be after Elena Mikolaevna. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Bogdan, again. Thank also for this survey. This is the second one already, and we want to work with the dairy module in the most active way until late June. Some things will take 4 months or so, so not everything will be possible to do, but okay, we are expecting Elena Mikolaevna to join us in a matter of seconds, and a little notice. The module will be updated probably in 5 months at its best. And for 5 months, we will be seeing new responsible users appearing there at the module. So when you are registering or entering the module as a sampling delegate, you will have to press no here. We will change this window, this box, for the State Food Safety Service. Only inspectors can log in, and this is the inspection system they have. We are not related to it. And this is exactly for Food Safety Service professionals. The delegates rather they will have to press no in this welcome screen. So only after you entered your password and entered, you will be able to see guidelines for the user. We want to correct this error, technically even, but until then, all new professionals willing to join as delegates, and they will join because the program is growing, please be reminded that you have to press no on the document screen, and you will have to use the standard entering procedure. Thank you for heeding this advice, because this is important, and Bogdan also suffers regularly having to explain it, but the problem can be solved very simply by pressing no or yes if you belong to this Food Safety Service. And we go on with our discussion of the pilot. Particularly, we are to tackle the feedbacks provided by general departments based on their work on the action plan. The Food Safety Service representatives and Oksana Mikolaevna, they were able to collect all the reports from the main departments on pilot implementation, and these were analyzed. And now we'd like to highlight some key points from those reports to show the vision of oblast level main departments to highlight the problems and issues they faced with pilot implementation in 2021. So dear Oksana, can you provide us with this general information? Yeah, thank you, Irina. Greetings to the new additions, new participants in the event. And now I'd like to brief you on the results of implementation of the action plan. It was done in furtherance to the respective order from the Food Safety Service, and oblast level main departments provided their feedbacks and comments on potential improvements to the legislative field in the area. Analyzing these feedbacks allowed of evaluating the real circumstances on site and identify some weak points that our state inspection officers have faced on site to see how these handicaps can be resolved. If generalized, these matters can be structured into three groups. The first concerns potential amendments to the existing piece of legislation. The second concerned improvements to the dairy module. And the third group concerned other aspects of implementation, say the lack of specific knowledge or some questions to sample collection and transportation, or something about lab testing that has been mentioned today regarding testing methods, either the DSTO-based or the ISO, respective ISO standards. So in terms of the first group of feedbacks, these were regarding Order 118 or Article 40 of the Law 2042. And these definitely merit attention and can be recommended for the central body of the executive in charge of the national policy on food safety and quality indicators. These can be really used for amendments to the legislation, and the state food safety service will definitely support them. However, there are also other suggestions that we would not immediately support. Say if we take the proposal to amend Order 118 regarding the regularity of collection of samples, and some parameters recommended by exporters, I can tell you that all dairy product exporters have to comply with requirements of the destination country, as well as those from the Ukrainian legislation. That is the Order 118, and the sampling regularity should be quite in line with the order stipulations. We have no other options here. Or let's take proposals about potential direct supply of raw milk to consumers. At the moment, the legislation does not provide for direct raw milk supply to end users. All milk has to undergo thermal treatment, after which it may only be delivered. And based on the indicators we mentioned in the first part of the meeting today, like TBC and so on, we can see that this is not possible in current conditions here. If and when we reach those indicators at the level of, the range of 1 to 400,000, then probably we may revisit the option, but not before. Other question regarding mandated information to competent authority, and Bogdan correctly mentioned SMS messaging. So FBOs and the authorized labs authorized to do tests mentioned on a food safety service website, they are to comply with the requirement to inform about the results. So when just viewing the information or during the inspection phase, the authorized and accredited lab has to inform all the results based on the dairy module and based on other indicators. Otherwise, there should be actions regarding this lab. Another point of discussion regarding mandation to all FBOs to carry out lab tests for all indicators, also pollutants, once a month. Our legislation, it has completely changed in 2014 through 2016. And the regulation has shown that market operators, based on assessment of risk factors, has to come up with its own list of indicators to be tested. And this has to comply with descriptions in the quality assurance system. From here, the regularity of pesticide-related tests or radiological tests and so on, these can be carried out, say, once every 6 months. And it is not possible to do it by constantly updating Order 118. Still more that this is against the legal requirements to such changes. There is also a suggestion that milk producers have to notify processors on quality of the milk. I think when the dairy module becomes fully operational, I'm not sure when it will come, but each processing plant, when willing to buy milk from a producer, will be able to use the dairy module to see quality indicators. So if I am a processor willing to find a supplier for me, I think one of the priority factors from the outset will be the results from the dairy module for me to see what is the proof from a supplier that his milk quality is up to the standard. If the TBC is in excess of 500,000, definitely I won't be interested in having anything with it. And further on, if speaking about the state control, if a processor is going to buy milk from raw milk producer who is not participating in the module and is not able to confirm compliance with quality requirements, then there will be questions to such supplier in terms of the quality of milk used for domestic use or exports. And all the missions that we've seen sent to us to verify milk quality have been focused on measures to confirm that raw milk is in compliance with Regulation 73. If no, this may raise questions to the quality of raw milk meant particularly for exports, but also for domestic use as well. Exports are good, but we also need to be mindful of the domestic consumption of the product. And I personally would love to stick to the milk with TBC of less than 100,000. So this is an important thing. As regards suggested amendments to Article 40, I fully support this. I think the animals should be healthy and should be subject to veterinary control. We have the order for that purpose 17, 18, and 18, but these are to be cancelled and replaced with a new order on sanitary and hygienic requirements to animals. And I'd like to thank the Swiss-Ukrainian project for having joined the design of this document. The whole idea of the document is very nice, and it's worth implementing because it states that all the animals should be subject to state control and comply with relevant milk quality requirements. Now, the question regarding samples to be processed in authorized labs. Yes, indeed. This is the correct way of doing it. One of the issues mentioned also in the chat that concerns sample collection, and I think we're going to discuss it tomorrow when we will hear people from the State Research Institute on that. But again, the question whether we will be using the state standards of Ukraine. I think if you are going to get accredited, just check for the applicable legal regulations to see which methods have to be used. And nearly every lab is going through the re-accreditation process nowadays. Some get bigger, some get updated, and I think it's really high time to review those standards that you want to be accredited for. And you have to apply the state standard, which is ISO compliant. No practical need or use of using just DSTO without ISO compliance, because this is a measure to ensure good results from our tests. And there is a nice proposal on changes to the Verification Act to facilitate verification within the meaning of Order 118. A good suggestion. Thanks everyone who suggested it. Regarding updates to the dairy module, Bogdan covered it nicely, telling us about future steps. If you ask me, you know, the position of a state inspector, the question of can you edit lab test results, it raises some bells with me. What sort of editing do we have in mind? Because we need to keep valid, verifiable, and it's very important also for the lab to participate in comparative testing, because I suggest you go to a higher level to make sure that your methods are in line, that they provide valid results. So the labs providing TBC tests or SCC tests, you will have to get to receive confirmation of your lab testing results being valid. And this can be done only through verification, through participation in professional testing exercise. And I think that some issues with sample collection transportation may be also related to methods used in the lab. And these may not be excluded.
And to summarize, all these issues, I think, will help us to chart the course for the future. And if we didn't start the work, we wouldn't have the challenges, the issues. So having these issues is a good signal and evidence that people are using this control program and they're facing challenges, which is okay, because if that proves that they're working. When you start doing something new and start working with data and the software, you start encountering some challenges, but that really shows us what needs to improve and what has to be done in the legislative framework and in terms of some technical upgrades. But analyzing the reports that you have provided and the proposals that we have received from you shows that we are making a good progress throughout the whole of Ukraine. And I support this proposal on training for sampling and transportation. But also I want to say that everyone shouldn't just wait for the help to be given. We are all reading the same legal documents. It's important for you to know where you can find them. Some oblasts have better results, like Mykolaiv, Sumy, Poltava, and you can also do some training materials yourself, like you can do a video clip, you can do training in your own oblast, you can organize exchange of experience with other oblasts. You can say, yes, we have done this new practice of using sterile containers, and we see the existing challenges, and this is how you can overcome them. If you only wait for the legislation to change, 90% of cases you can resolve things yourself. And thanks to Swiss-Ukrainian project, we do have this order 118. But going back to the lab test results, we can see that we have technical challenges to overcome. And if we resolve the technical challenges with accreditation and sampling, because if you do the sampling for TBC, of course, the containers should be sterile. And the issues that we will discuss tomorrow will be important. And I encourage you all to join tomorrow's discussion, because we need to implement this and to live with this as the normal everyday practice. So thank you for your attention. Oksana, thank you very much for this detailed explanation. Yes, we have received reports, really good reports. Thank you everyone who worked to prepare them. And while our participants are preparing their questions, I will follow up on what you said about the future. We have time starting from January, we have the new resolution signed by Anatoly Bavnyuk, signed on January 5th. So, and that includes the composition of the working group. And we are preparing for the first meeting of this working group, because we work together to accumulate all the proposal to change the legislation, to change the Order 118. We have this comparison table. And while we are working with different ministries, we want to use this time and to meet as a working group and present these comparison tables to Order 118. And as Sergei already mentioned from Cherkasy Oblast, also amendments to the Law 2042, Article 40. And in our working group, we have specialists from the main departments and the headquarters. So we will go through every suggestion for amendments, and we have 22 of them. We have collected 22. Perhaps you will have some additional ideas, and then we will submit this document to the Ministry of Economy, and we believe that there will be a working group established also at the Ministry of economy, and then together with business associations, there will be a final kind of draft to the amendments to Order 118. Yes, let's hope for that. This is really something that will help us to make better progress. Now we move to Q&A session. Let me remind you, we had two presentations. We focused more on the dairy module with support of Bogdan Pustovit, and Oksana just summarized and also explained some critical points, recommendations following the implementation of the pilot projects. So recommendations received from the main departments from oblasts. And Sergey, I believe it is relevant for Kharkiv. You heard the vision about the labs and the methods that are not compliant with the ISO. I think it's a painful topic for you, but this topic is not closed, and we have tomorrow and we can discuss it. So please join our webinar tomorrow. So let's see what we have in the chat. I don't see any additional questions, but I see ideas in the chat. Idea Labrenyuk, the Milk Producers Association, she says there is experience of changing the data entry in DIAM. There is a chatbot support service. So in Telegram, there is a chatbot, plus there are video explanations of the most frequently asked questions and how to correct the entry data on the YouTube channel. Good idea. We will take it into consideration. And now, as the project, we are working on preparing video explanations for the best practices of milk production, milk collection, and milk transportation. So video training as a format is very good. And many colleagues also in their reports said that they want to have more explanations, more training, and more communications between themselves. Colleagues, are there any more questions? If not, I suggest we do as follows. Think about your questions, put them in the chat, raise your hands, and we will watch for your hands. And now I would like to invite you to the next final for today, online polling. We need to move ahead. How we will do that? We want to get your feedback on that. So your general recommendations, very briefly, using 3 to 4 words statements, highlight the priorities in addition to those that have been already announced in terms of amendments to the legislation. We will definitely meet together. Dmitro Anatolievich hopefully will get well very soon. He's now in the hospital and he couldn't join us. But together with him, when we will discuss the amendments to the law and give us some more additional priorities from your perspective, whether you're a delegate or an FBO or a lab. You see how you can use the Mentimeter, and Olena will help us now with the QR code. Yes, you can see the QR code on the screen. You can see the code that you should enter at the menti.com website. Also, you can see the link in the chat. While you are using this Mentimeter, Olesya, can you please mute yourself, or have you? There's a lot of noise coming from. So amendments to Order 118 include that raw milk control program should be implemented using dairy module.
Так, це наше наступне бачення.
Yes, this is our next vision.
Які наступні кроки важливі з точки вашої
What should be the priorities in terms of your perspective? We only have 3 participants who voted in Mentimeter. Please, colleagues, make sure to do that.
Як тільки буде учасників 10, так, показувати
I
одразу
suggest when we have
результати,
at least 10 votes
і доповнювати
for you to
їх
show the results so that the colleagues can see
можливо.
and write something new and not duplicate the
При собі можна вже
comments
питання.
already given.
Ви, напевно, бачили анонс
I think you have seen the announcement from the Ministry of Economy on the list of questions for inspections, the checklist for thermal processing of milk, and so this checklists are ready. The order is registered at the Ministry of Justice, and we are waiting for the official publication. So can you perhaps comment? I'm talking to inspectors. What does it mean for you? You have this checklist already, but the situations that you're dealing with now, can you give us some signal when they will be already enforced? What that will mean for you? What are the implications for your work? Dear inspectors, out of 183, I'm sure we have some inspectors, because I believe you already have this checklist from the Ministry of Economy. What are the implications for your work? Okay, perhaps you can comment on that. Do we understand correctly? If we have 3 incompliances during the 3 months time because of using geometric average, and when the 4th incompliance comes, when you have the 4th month, you have an irregular inspection. So you take this checklist and you go to an FBO that has this incompliance. Is that correct? Lena shows us the results of the voting. Can you make them smaller so that we can see all the comments received? Unfortunately, not. Okay, then perhaps we can read the top ones. Increase the awareness raising and educational work, not just with the state service, but also with others. You can also see on our website the activities that we have announced together with our private service providers for the hygiene of milk production, collection and transportation, and also health of cows and udder. So we will highlight to the participating FBOs the importance of that. We have a comment: improve transportation at the labs for transporting the samples. Improve transportation, I think those who make this decision will hear that, because based on the reports from the last year, we see that oblasts are procuring the vehicles. How they use the vehicles, well, you should know better. Okay, we have another comment: make amendments to Order 118. Thank you, we have noted that. Work with the milk producers. Okay, harmonizing the regulatory requirements. The samples for the somatic cell count according to second part of the international standard. If you have the relevant colleagues here, perhaps they can comment on that, or tomorrow we can start our discussion from this point. Thank you for noting it. Accreditation of the relevant testing methods. Thank you. Everyone probably are aware of that now. approving the dairy module and making amendments to Order 118. Okay. Next is improve the analytical data. Well, perhaps you have participated in a previous meeting when we talked about statistics, which statistics from the dairy module should be collected. And today Oksana covered that in her presentation. So hopefully it will be an automated process. And we will be able to receive this analytical information from the dairy module. Order the process of responsible people for those who deliver samples. What do you mean? Do you mean who is the sampling delegate? Perhaps you can unmute yourself and comment on this idea, because it could be very interesting how else we can improve our work with the sampling delegates. Let us know what you mean by that. Technical equipment for the delegates including vehicles, smartphones, training abroad, learning best practices, and so on. Great, we already have the basic concept. We have the whole reference institute that can do this training. Yes, we can already work here. Yes, the methods, the testing methods is very important for the labs to be able to do that. Sterile containers for somatic cell count. Interesting. Yes, there is a lot of interconnectedness. Raw milk control program from voluntary to mandatory. Thank you. This is what we already entered in Order 118 and even into our proposals to Article 40.
Усі перераховані. Так,
So I
солідарність.
think everything has been mentioned. Okay. Solidarity, setting up the system and checking the selection procedure, the collection procedure. Would be nice, by the way, to hear from you in more detail yesterday. Technical provision of lab staff. Selecting module so that collection is carried out by authorized lab. I think tomorrow we are going to talk more about that, and we will discuss them. Involving FBOs to the dairy module, improving the quality of software. We are working on that. Trainings for FBOs and inspection officers. Yeah, on behalf of the program, I can assure you that we definitely have trainings for inspectors, inspection officers in mind. And the checklist prepared with a lot of mean economy is another guarantee that we are going to have this training available. And we've actually designed a software to explain the inspection officer after some discrepancy, first, second, fourth is identified. So the training will be there based on the checklist, how to properly use it on site, and so based. Training for FBOs. I do hope that the Association of Milk Producers helps us. There are no guidelines with clear-cut requirements to milk-related blocks of milk producers. There are new annexes to Min Economy Order to cancel certain provisions on that, but there will be chance to discuss it. Better involving manufacturers in collaboration with labs. And yeah, I think you have to do it. So you have to foster cooperation, not just within the meaning of Order 118, but also you should explore other avenues of such cooperation. Yeah, better information communication. I do remember Bogdan mentioned the need for a clear-cut communication with market operators, with FBOs, to show who's responsible, who to contact, how to register as a system participant, and effectively we'll have to work on that. All the regional departments will have to become involved. And this Order 118 will provide necessary grounds for such informing. I'm against the lab to participate in sample collection because lab's task is to carry out tests. Nice point probably for tomorrow discussion. Okay, training for FBOs, changes to Order 118. Technical provision of sample collection officers in terms of the training, sterilized containers, transport. There is a roadmap designed with the involvement of the state. Food safety service, this concerns the training, so there is a training component there. And probably we'll have to work together with regional labs to see how this can be done. And while we have just 1 more minute to go, it's interested to see how it's better, how might it be better to organize training also for milk producers. And Ruslan says in chat that probably a webinar could be arranged to ensure a more lively discussion. Good. We had 24 seminars involving FBOs. Do you suggest another round of these? So no more raised hands. What are other ideas of how to connect to milk producers? Is it about a new webinar with the food safety service? Do you think it will be efficient? I am definitely missing communication now. We still have 177 participants, but no other responses. Okay, I think you were not overwhelmed with the information we provided. This is just the first part for you to better assess the results, proposals, recommendations, and tomorrow we will have a narrower issues to discuss. Also some mentioned today here. And tomorrow we'll be looking into more technical, more narrower issues. So it's 1 p.m. and we are good, we are clear with the agenda. So till tomorrow, till the next day's meeting. We can look for more proactive, forward-going farms and invite them. Okay, Ruslan, I think we can discuss it, how to involve them. And I suggest that we stop recording this event. And if you're ready to make a joint photo, a family photo,